Good day, everyone. Our report is all about item analysis and validation. The purpose of this report is to ensure that the test under analysis is both functional and effective. The process involves four main phases. The first one is tryout phase. The draft test is administered to a sample group similar to the target audience. Second is item analysis phase. Each test item is evaluated for difficulty and its ability to discriminate between students with varying levels of knowledge. Third one is revision phase. Poorly performing items are revised or replaced. Lastly, validation phase. The final test is validated for use as a standard evaluation tool. Our topic contains basic item analysis statistics, more sophisticated discrimination index, reliability, and validity. So what is item difficulty? Item difficulty or difficulty of an item is defined as the number of students who are able to answer the item correctly divided by the total number of students. So item difficulty is equal to number of students with correct answer divided by the total number of students. The item difficulty is usually expressed in percentage. For example, if 75 students answer correctly out of 100 total responses, so item difficulty is equal to 75 over 100 is equal to 0.75 or 75%. So an index of 75% suggests that the item is moderately easy. For classroom test, difficulty should generally range between 20% and 80%. So what is discrimination index? The discrimination index measures an item's ability to distinguish between high-performing and low-performing students. It is calculated as discrimination index is equal to DU minus DL, where DU and DL are the difficulty indices for the upper 25% and lower 25% of test takers, respectively. For example, if DU is equal to 0.60 or 60% of the upper group answered correctly and DL is equal to 0.20 or 20% of the lower group answered correctly. So, discrimination index is equal to 0.60 minus 0.20 is equals to 0.40. So, a discrimination index of 0.40 indicates good discrimination between high and low performers. Values close to 1.0 are ideal while negative values suggest issues with the item. Theoretically, the index of discrimination can range from negative 1.0 when DO is equal to 0 and DL is equal to negative 1 to 1.0 when DO is equal to negative 1 and DL is equal to 0 when the index of discrimination is equal to negative 1. Then this means that all of the lower 25% of the students get the correct answer, while all the upper 25% get the wrong answer. In a sense, such an index discriminates correctly between the two groups, but the item itself is highly questionable. Why should the bright ones get the wrong answer and the poor ones get the right answer? On the right hand, if the index of discrimination is 1.0, then this means that all of the lower 25% failed to get the correct answer, while all of the upper 25% get the correct answer. This is perfectly discriminating item and is the ideal item that should be included in the test. So take note that the item analysis process ensures test reliability and validity, ensuring that students' results truly reflect their knowledge and skills. Items with poor discrimination or extreme difficulty may introduce bias or fail to accurately evaluate learning outcomes.
So good day everyone. So now let's talk about the basic item analysis statistics. So according to the research, the Michigan State University Measurement and Evaluation Department reports a number of item statistics, which aid in evaluating the effectiveness of an item. So the first of this, the index of difficulty, of which MSU defines as the proportion of the total group who got the item wrong. Thus, a high index indicates a difficult item and a low index indicates an easy item. Some item analyses prefer an index of difficulty, which is the proportion of the total group who got an item right. So this index may be obtained by marking the proportion right, a right option on the item analysis header sheet. So whichever index is selected is shown as the index of difficulty on the item analysis printout. So for classroom achievement test, most test constructors desires item with indices of difficult no lower than 20 nor higher than 80, with an average index of difficulty from 30 or 40 to a maximum of 60. Now, so basic analysis statistic, this will use to evaluate the quality of individual. Example of this is questions. So questions on a test. So they help to determine how well each item is measuring the intended construct and identify any potential issues with the item. So for the classroom achievement test in difficulty index or p-value, this measures the proportion of students who answered the questions correctly. It is dividing the number. So it is dividing the number of students who answered correctly by the total number of students answered correctly by the number of students. So now let's proceed to the index discriminations. Now, index discrimination is the differences between the proportion of the upper group who got an item right and the proportion of the lower group who got the item right. So this index is dependent upon the difficulty of an item. So it may reach a maximum value of 100 for an item with an index of difficulty of 50. That is when 100% of the upper group and none of the lower group answer the item correctly. For items of less than or greater than 50 difficulty, the index of discrimination has the maximum value of a less than 100. Interpreting the index of discrimination document contains a more detailed discussion of the index discrimination. So, discrimination index, this refers to the measures how well the item distinguishes between students who scored high on the overall test and those who got low scored. So, it is calculated by comparing the proportion of high scoring student who answered correctly to the proportion of low scoring student who answered correctly. So now, let's discuss about the item descriptions. Item descriptions refers to the ability of an item to differentiate among the students on the basis of how well they know the material being tested. Various hand calculations procedure have traditionally been used to compare item response to total test scores using a high and low accurate assessment of the discrimination power of items because they take into account response of all students rather than just high and low scoring groups. So the item discriminations index provided, the score pack, is a person product management correlation between students' response to a particular item and total scores on overall items on the test. This index is the equivalent of a point biserial coefficient in these applications. So it provides an estimate of the degree to which an individual item is measuring the same things as the rest of the items. So for item analysis can involve more complex calculations and considerations, especially for more sophisticated assessment. So that's all for our discussions.
Good day everyone, my name is Berna and today let's tackle about reliability. So reliability, the consistency of a measure or how often the same result is produced during the same technique. Reliable results can be reproduced even if they are incorrect. So reliability, on the other hand, is not all concerned with intent, instead asking whether the test used to collect data produces accurate results. In his context, accuracy is defined by inconsistency, whether the results could be replicated. So for example, a test with confusing instructions. Students consistently misunderstood an answer incorrectly, producing inconsistent but invalid results. A biased questionnaires. Questions are praised to elicit a specific response, leading to reliable but invalid data about true opinions. Next is validity. So validity, the validity of an instrument is the idea that the instrument measures what it intends to measure. Validity pertains to the connections between the purpose of the research and which the data researchers chooses to quality that purpose. Example, a test with confusing instructions. Students consistently misunderstand and answer incorrectly, producing consistent but invalid result. A biased questionnaire. Questions are praised to elicit a specific response, leading to reliable but invalid about data through opinions.